It's late, it's dark, and you're coming home tired. Suddenly finding the front door open and no lights on was not in your plan. Do you draw and go in, or retreat and wait for police? What would you do? Stop the Threat starts now. Hello and welcome to Stop the Threat. My name is James Towle. On this week's episode, we take you to Maryland for a reenactment in which we have entitled Unexpected Company. But first, let me introduce you to this week's panel. Rich Portwood. Officer Portwood is not only the senior firearms instructor for his department, but he is writing a book for firearms instructors, focusing mainly on instructors in small departments. Sarah Cortez. Officer Cortez has spent her adult life as a police officer, but it has been her talent in writing that has propelled her into the literary world. Sarah has a unique style of describing the day and the life of a police officer. Thank you for adding to the panel, Sarah. Sergeant Duncan Stewart. Sergeant Stewart began his career in 1980 as a corrections officer with the New York State Correctional Service, then joined the Connecticut Police Department in 1984. Sergeant Stewart has been a longtime contributor to Stop the Threat, and we were finally able to get him to join our panel. Welcome all, and I'm glad that we're all here together. We're bringing a lot of experience to the table. But before we get started, I want to ask Rich something about the book that you're working on. Now, this is for instructors in small departments. How does that differ from instructors in large departments?
Small departments really don't have a lot of resources. And what this is, basically I'm drawing upon my education background. I spent 4 years as a teacher. How to develop a lesson plan, how to develop lesson plans into units, how to go out and get materials and funding, and how to really bring this all together in one package for a small department.
So it's a budgetary, how to use your budget to get the most out of it?
Yeah, how to create a whole curriculum for your firearms program.
Okay, and this is your first book?
Yes, sir.
Correct?
Yes, sir.
And is this a challenge?
Very, very. I find myself writing and then just tossing 3 or 4 chapters at a time.
Okay.
And starting all over.
I got just a few minutes, but there's a rumor that you may be thinking about a book?
Yes, I am. When we discussed it, you were kind of the impetus for me to, even explore writing a book. But, there's been many books about, adventures of policemen. I kind of want to take the tack of how the police and the citizenry would interact, and what's the best way for citizens to interact, legitimate, law-abiding citizens to interact with the police.
Yeah, I like that angle. Now, Sarah, you have the most experience. Is there a segment of the audience who would read that book?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one of the reason I fell in love with police work and went into policing was because I was part of a citizen group that became very, very effective in my neighborhood, working with the police officers to take care of the crime in the neighborhood. And this is when I was still a civilian. Okay. So community involvement and interaction with the cops is absolutely crucial.
Well, I think all of you have a lot of experience, so I think the idea of putting pen to paper is a real good idea. And when we come back, I'm going to show you part 1 of our next segment. Welcome back, viewers. Before we go to part 1 of Unexpected Company, let me just quickly set this in reenactment up for you. It's the end of your work day. You look forward to going home. The last thing that you want to find when you reach home, unexpected company. Watch.
Of course. All right. Yeah, just shoot me his email and I'll tag him in the morning, all right? Hey, hold on just a second. I just pulled up, okay? Okay, yeah, I'm back. Yeah, so what do you say? That's pretty good. Okay, yeah, so like I said, shoot me his email. I'll get it in the morning, all right? Awesome. Frank. Someone just broke into my house.
Okay, we kind of have a pretty good idea what's taking place here. The question is, what are we going to do next? I'm going to start out by just saying, pulling into your driveway, having the cell phone going, walking up to your house is pretty common. However, is it smart? Sergeant?
You know, he's distracted initially, and he's, you know, appears to be unaware. But you know, we can all say that we're always going to be aware, we're always going to be on edge, but that's not reality. You know, most attacks occur when people aren't really as aware as they should be, because let's face it, we do make phone calls. We do things other than just walk around. You know, if you want to get into the color codes and say we don't walk around in condition orange. You know, you hope you're in condition yellow, but it's not always the case. He at least seemed to have the presence of mind as he looked at he kind of picked up, well, this isn't right. And if it doesn't look right, it probably isn't.
Okay, Rich?
At least he also had the presence of mind while he's on the phone with his friend, says, hey, something's out of place here,
absolutely.
the door's open. But one thing that really bothered me is looking at the house.
His email address.
He's walking up to that house.
Frank.
There are no lights. There's nothing around that front door. At my own house, all the lights on the outside are motion sensitive.
Good.
So as you approach,
Right.
they kick on.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that my neighbors watch for.
And it's not expensive. We're not talking about a big
No.
deal here.
No.
Right. Now, the upside would be that he does have the phone open.
Yeah.
Okay, let's look at
Right.
the upside.
Well, one of the things that I noticed, and this is probably from police training, which is that he was not aware of the vehicles parked in front or of his house or adjacent to his house. So there were two vehicles there. There was a black truck, and then there was a dark colored two-door, I believe, vehicle. So especially with the truck, if he, like for me, when I get home, I know the vehicles that should be on the street that belong to my neighbors, and I try to be aware if there's a vehicle I don't recognize.
Yay, I mean, and congratulations. Did anybody else notice what was on the street? Honest to God, I
I'm gonna
didn't.
admit I didn't.
I didn't. I was watching him, and I didn't. So, you know.
Oh,
hey,
for real?
Yeah,
For
good for
real.
you. That you I think you caught us all flat-footed with that answer, and that was really good. Paying attention to what's on the street, what you're accustomed to seeing on the, what you're not accustomed to seeing on the street is probably what
Absolutely.
you're pointing out.
Absolutely.
I think too that it depends on, you know, where you live. There'll be neighborhoods, you know, if you live in an apartment building, you're going to see different cars. It's not always going to be the same.
True.
However, if you live in a more, you know, you live in a residential area where
Right,
you have
like
a house
his.
like he
Like
is,
his.
then you pretty much would know, hey, that fits or it doesn't fit.
You know, that really is a good point. We're giving you. I'm writing that down, Sarah. You get points for that because the rest of us, I think
We're already losing.
I think we kind of missed that one. But okay, let's move forward a little bit. Let's go with the idea that there is a vehicle that you're not accustomed to seeing on the street. Would you have a working relationship with your neighbors, for instance? Would it be a good idea? I mean, your neighbor sees that there's something not right on the street.
Well, here's one of the things that I do on my street is I try to know my neighbors, even though I have a lot of renters on my street, and I tell them, because my house has been broken into several times, look, anything you see, anybody knocking on the door for 45 minutes at a time, any vehicle that's in my driveway, call the cops.
Okay, all right.
They
Yeah.
don't mind being called to check out suspicious vehicles or suspicious people.
Go ahead,
I was
Rich.
just going to say, last night after dinner, my neighbor actually called me. He lives right across the street, and he had noticed that my squad car hadn't moved. He said, are you at home?
Are you okay?
Because I don't see any lights on inside, and I noticed that your squad car didn't move tonight.
Excellent type of
Yeah.
neighbor. Isn't
Right.
that
That's the
fabulous?
kind of neighbor you look
That's
for.
But that's
fabulous.
what you need to
Right,
do. You
right.
need to be involved with your neighbor. You know, and I think that really has a lot to do with this situation too, because his house isn't lit up. No one's watching. No one's able to see someone kicking in the front door.
Right.
And-
Hold that thought. Hold that thought. We'll be right back with the rest of that. Welcome back, viewers. We're going to look at part 2, but Rich was right in the middle of a statement, and I cut him off, so go with what you had.
Well, it kind of goes back to having a perimeter defense, so to speak, around your home, having lights that will
Simple
illuminate.
solution, lights, come on.
But having a relationship with your next door neighbors,
right.
that if the lights are on and they can see someone strange, a new car,
Right.
approaching your front door, especially if they see somebody kicking in the front door or the door standing wide open, as it is in this case, they're going to contact the police before you're ever there.
You know, I think that's probably very logical for people who live maybe in the country and they're friendly with their neighbors, or people who just happen to know their neighbors. Okay, we'll come back to this, but let's watch part 2.
Yeah, so just give me his email. I'll call him in the morning. Frank, someone just broke into my house. I don't know where my family is. I don't know if they're still there. Call 911. I'm going in. I'm armed. This is my house. Come out with your hands where I can see them. Stop! The police are on their way!
Okay, let me just start by saying there are so many things here that bother me that
Oh, wow.
let's just start at the real beginning here. There is this situation that takes place. What was wrong with just saying, listen, I'm going to wait till 911 arrives and I have some kind of backup before I go into the house? Okay, that's the most obvious one.
911.
Huh?
Well,
right.
here,
Why
he
didn't he
made-
call? That's a good one.
And he's making a big assumption, which may be incorrect, which is that his pal actually knows his exact street address.
Yeah.
Okay, that's number
I mean,
two. That's good. That's
big
good.
assumption. I would have advocated that he, after he said, I think my house has been broken into, call 911, click. He calls 911. Now, he had good command presence. I mean, he got to his gun quickly, he got to his light quickly, he had good, he started out with good command presence, but you can have excellent command presence and still get killed. So then he starts making a lot of dubious decisions.
Right. Yes, he does. Sergeant?
Absolutely. I thought it was good that he told his buddy on the phone to call 911, but I agree wholeheartedly that is his friend going to give the police a description of him? So they know. So when they
Right.
get there, you have a burglary in progress.
Right. That's a good
so
point.
who's the perp? Who's the good guy now?
Right. You put law enforcement in a bad position.
And you're just hoping that your friend is smart enough to do all these things. That's a big leap.
Right.
You know, it was good. I like the fact that he did have a flashlight. I mean, I thought that
With
was
him.
somewhat helpful.
But did he have handcuffs?
Yeah. Well,
Probably not.
and he probably wasn't trained to use them, because he probably would have produced a badge if he was law enforcement. So at least at this point, I'm assuming he's not. So, and then to the actual doing a one-man building search is not a preferred
But if you
technique.
listened really closely, Sergeant, he did say, "I don't know where my family is."
Right.
And I think that was what it propelled him to go into the home. It's not my first call here, but I think he had the feeling that he needed to go in. And I think that was what pushed him through the door. And at least he had some idea what he was doing.
Right. Yeah. But he could have started yelling, "Honey," or "Wifey,"
Why not?
or whatever he calls her.
Why
"Sweetie,
couldn't you do that?
Are you okay? Are you in there?"
Right.
And I think
what's wrong with that?
We were talking last night over dinner about what it's like to search someplace alone.
Right.
Now, if he's going to be going into some of those rooms the way he did, he barely walked in. If you are comfortable saying this room is clear and this room is secure, take the time, pull that door closed as quietly as possible, and that way you're eliminating that room. If someone was in there, maybe you're going to hear them open that door.
And he did walk by some rooms that were dark without clearing them.
Right.
So he actually didn't do a really effective building search. He didn't look like behind the shower curtain and all the places you have to look everywhere.
Well, I felt as though he needed to go in. I don't see anything wrong with hollering or, who knows? Maybe it was a neighbor who was bringing you something. They had their hands full. How many times have we kicked it with our heel and the door didn't close? I mean, you're now coming in with a gun. This could be a dangerous situation.
Yeah.
And if he does have family inside, why couldn't it be a family member?
Why couldn't it be a family
And it could
member?
be,
Absolutely.
he could be turning, I'm sorry, James, I talked over you. He could be accidentally turning it into a hostage situation. If the guy's in there and the family's in there and the guy, bad guy has a gun, here comes Mr. Would-be hero with a gun. Okay, now what? Is he a good enough shot to kill the guy before the guy kills the family? I mean, he's really upping the odds by making that entry.
Right.
And as we've seen so far, there's one guy in there.
Right.
Who's to say there's not more?
That's
So
correct.
now
Okay,
you're
hold that thought.
really at a disadvantage.
Okay, we got to go. We'll be right back. We have a lot more to tell you. Welcome back, viewers. We have just seen Unexpected Company, and there is a world of information coming towards you and not enough time to give it to you. But I'm going to start off with this. If you entered the house, what was wrong with flipping on the light in each room as you went? You're by yourself. What's wrong with that idea?
Nothing
Nothing.
wrong with that.
Okay.
It will save him from the exposure of shining the light and the crook seeing him and shooting the light and
Right.
shooting him because
Right.
he's not moving the light away from his body when he shines the light.
Yeah, and it's not Hollywood. It's not a movie. This is reality. None of the reenactments that we do, it comes out of a Hollywood script. This is all real stories that came to us. And in fact, the panel's never seen them before you have. But let me just go forward with that. He makes the commitment to go inside because he feels a family member may be in there. He chooses to go in with a flashlight and he's armed. Appears to be that he has some kind of training. We agree on that. Is there a procedure? I mean, he has home territory, right? So if it's your home ground, let's think about that for a minute. You know how to walk through your house in the dark. Most of us do. Is it smarter to go with the dark and the flashlight or turn on the lights?
I like turning on the lights.
You like turning
on
the lights? Okay.
reason I like turning on the lights is because you eliminate so many of the other problems. Even he doesn't have a weapons-mounted light, so he has a handheld light. How competent is he? He's in that Harry's position. He appears to have had some training, but the best of trained, still manipulating the light, the firearm, and whatever, puts you at a disadvantage. And once that ambient light goes on, it's like you're in an encounter in broad daylight.
And I think we need to make a distinction here. If you're going to go in and go in with a flashlight, you're on the hunt. Mm-hmm. If you're going to go in and flip on lights, you're not hunting anymore, right?
But when you flip on that light, too, you can see an entire room.
Right.
When you have that flashlight, you're picking areas that you're concentrating as you move along. So especially when you're by yourself, I think you're at a disadvantage because you can only look at a small segment of that room at a time with that flashlight. Whereas when
Right.
that light goes on, you see everything.
Okay.
And here's another question for the viewer to ask him or herself. How well do you shoot in the dark?
Okay, that's a good point, because how much training does a normal civilian have shooting in the dark? That's nice. I mean, I think we do in USPSA and IDPA, but if you're not involved in that, and most people aren't, then you've had no experience shooting at night.
Yeah, yeah. And I think just for the sake of argument, once you flip on those lights, though, you're taking away any element of surprise. You're really giving that light as an alert to if you do have an intruder. For me, I wish the guy would have made the decision, I'm going to fall back to a position of cover.
like
I'm
that.
going to call 911 and go from there.
There's nothing wrong with that, nothing whatsoever. Like I said, the reason I think he pushed forward was because he did have some concern on the family.
Sure.
And we've just about run out of time. So the backstory is, this is a law enforcement officer returning home.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow.
So that may explain some of those things. I'm not sure it explains everything, but I will say and I think we can all agree on this, if you don't have to go in the house, don't. Go 911, go back and sit in your car, go over to your neighbor's house. And we're out of time. We'll see you again next week. I promise you I will have another unexpected company story for you next week. Be safe, be trained, be alert, and don't be late.